The message arrives at exactly the kind of hour when you are too busy to be philosophical. You are walking from the car, maybe leaving work, maybe carrying groceries, maybe already half late for something else. Your phone lights up and the text looks boring enough to be dangerous. It says, "You have an unpaid toll." Not a dramatic accusation, not some movie level threat, just a small administrative problem with a small payment attached to it. That is why it gets through. Big lies trigger resistance. Small inconveniences trigger compliance. Then the message adds the detail that changes everything. The road feels familiar. The timing feels familiar. The whole thing feels close enough to your real life that your mind starts trying to remember instead of trying to verify. That is the trap. The text does not need to prove the toll is real. It only needs to make memory do the work of persuasion. The unpaid toll scam works because modern life is full of tiny automated obligations. Parking, apps, transit passes, road cameras, license plate billing, delivery notifications, subscription renewals, fraud alerts, and municipal fees. Everything already arrives as a notification. So when a fake toll notice appears on the same screen as your real logistics, it does not have to invent a new reality. It just hides inside the one you already live in. That is why these messages do not usually sound cinematic. They sound procedural. A balance due, a final reminder, a fee that will increase if ignored, a deadline measured in hours instead of weeks. The drama is intentionally small. The goal is not to terrify you. The goal is to make you feel mildly irresponsible for 3 minutes. That emotion is enough. It pushes you toward cleanup mode, and cleanup mode is where skepticism goes to die. One of the ugliest things about this scam is how well it understands ordinary movement. People receive these texts while driving, parking, commuting, traveling, or just after any trip that made a road fee feel remotely plausible. That timing is powerful because the brain likes coherence. If you used roads recently, then a road-related message feels attached to reality even before it is verified. The message can arrive after a commute, after a weekend trip, after a rental car drive, after an airport run, after crossing a bridge, after entering a city you do not visit often. Suddenly, the lie feels less like invention and more like cleanup. A March 11th, 2026 Reddit post in r/scams described exactly that reaction. The recipient knew the unpaid toll text was suspicious, but the scenario still felt close enough to daily life that it demanded a second look. That is the genius of the packaging. The scam lives in the gap between certainty and plausibility, not believable enough to trust, just believable enough to interrupt. The message borrows the authority of things people already accept as invisible. Road cameras, plate readers, municipal databases, contractors running, payment systems for public agencies, outsourced collections, and regional toll brands that most drivers only think about when something goes wrong. This is why the scam does not need a charismatic villain. It has infrastructure as a costume. It suggests there is a system somewhere that saw your car, matched your phone, calculated your balance, and now wants a small administrative correction before the fee becomes something larger. That is the emotional logic of the whole fraud. You are not being threatened by a person, you are being inconvenienced by a machine. Machines are harder to argue with, they feel automatic, and automatic problems make people hurry. The fake toll text usually does not ask for a dramatic sum. That is deliberate. The smaller the amount, the lower the internal debate. A giant charge would force you to stop and investigate. A minor fee feels like something you should clear before it mutates into a larger one. That is why the link matters so much. The link is not just a payment route. It is a speed ramp. It takes you out of reflection and into motion. Recent consumer warnings from the FTC said people are seeing texts about unpaid tolls and parking fees that push them to click immediately, often through links that imitate official systems. And once you click, the psychological ground changes. Now, you are no longer deciding whether a notification is real. You are trying to complete a process you have already partially entered. That is a much weaker position. The scammer does not simply want your money. The scammer wants the mental commitment that comes from taking the first step. This is the part people underestimate. The fake charge may be tiny, but the real objective can be larger than the number on the screen. Payment card details, billing address, phone validation, a live target who clicks fast, or a person whose device, city, and habits can now be sorted into a more valuable fraud category The toll is not always the harvest. Sometimes the toll is the filter. It identifies who responds to logistical pressure, who trusts interface design, who assumes small fees are safer than big ones, and who is likely to complete a workflow before pausing. That is why the scam belongs in the same family as fake bank texts, fake package notices, fake parking tickets, and fake account warnings. It is not really about roads. It is about how well modern life trained people to obey notifications that sound operational. National fear is abstract. Local inconvenience is intimate. A federal conspiracy is easy to dismiss. A toll road you might actually have used is harder. This scam wins by being boring in the right way. The roads feel nearby. The authority feels regional. The amount feels routine, and the wording feels like it came from a contractor instead of a criminal. When fraud borrows the tone of outsourced administration, it becomes strangely persuasive. It stops sounding like danger and starts sounding like maintenance. That tone matters because maintenance messages live below the level of high alert. They do not make people call family for advice. They make people think, I should handle this now before it becomes annoying. That is exactly the state the scam needs. The bigger story is that phone-based fraud has become extremely good at imitating process. It no longer needs theatrical emotion, a prince, a jackpot, or an obvious crisis. It can operate through tiny, believable obligations because daily life is already built out of tiny, believable obligations. The FTC's February 2025 warning about toll payment texts made the pattern clear. These scams often lean on urgency, small balances, and official-looking links to get people moving before they think. What makes that warning useful is not just the advice, it is the diagnosis. The fraud works because infrastructure has become an emotional language. If a message sounds like it came from a road camera, a payment processor, municipal vendor, or a transport authority, many people feel there must be some hidden database underneath it, and maybe there does not have to be. Maybe all the scam needed was scale, good timing, and the knowledge that drivers already expect to be measured by systems they never fully see. That is the unsettling part. The fake toll text feels technologically powerful even when it is really just socially well designed. After a person notices the scam, the damage does not disappear just because the money did not move. Driving feels different. Notifications feel dirtier. Every logistics message becomes slightly suspect. The phone turns into a checkpoint where ordinary life and counterfeit administration now blur together. That cost is easy to underestimate because it sounds abstract, but trust in small systems is what makes daily life frictionless. When that trust erodes, everything gets heavier. Texts take longer to read. Routine notices become miniature investigations. Even a real parking or toll issue starts to feel like bait. Fraud wins twice there. First by stealing attention, then by poisoning ordinary channels so completely that every later message carries residue from the lie. So the terrifying thing about the toll text is not the fee. It is the realism of the interruption. The message understands that your life is already organized by tiny screens, minor deadlines, regional systems, outsourced payment portals, and automatic reminders that expect immediate action. It slips into that pattern so easily that for a moment, it does not feel like an attack. It feels like administration. That is why the scam works. Not because the road is real, not because the balance is large, not because the text is brilliant, but because the phone has become the place where infrastructure speaks to you and people have been trained to respond before fully understanding who is speaking. The toll was never really the point. The point was to catch you inside a believable maintenance task when your guard was low and your day was already moving. That is why the message feels local. That is why the amount is small. That is why the link arrives fast. And that is why the scam lingers even after you delete it. Because for a moment, the road, the phone, and the system all seem to agree about what you owed.